Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. The Outdoor Adventure Series celebrates individuals and families, businesses, and organizations that seek out and promote the exploration, stewardship, conservation, and access and enjoyment of the great outdoors. Our guest today is Lauren Monitz. Lauren is the Director of Communication for the city of Beaumont, Texas, and former tourism developer of the Beaumont Convention and Visitors Bureau. Lauren, welcome to the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast.
Thank you for having me. We're new friends, but fast friends.
We are new fast friends. I love it. And for our listeners, I had the good pleasure of meeting Lauren. God, it seems like so long ago, a week and a half ago, at the Outdoor Writers Association of America. They held their annual meeting in beautiful Casper, Wyoming, and there Lauren was, and we started a conversation, and a week and a half later, here she is.
We didn't start a conversation. We rode a covered wagon together.
Well, we had a little conversation. I don't know about you, but after that covered wagon, I felt like I had had a very hard massage. I was sore for a couple days.
I got injured right after that, so that's another story. But
all right. So tell us a little bit about your background, and I would love to hear more about your experience at the conference. But let's talk about the background. I mean, you're communications director at the City of Beaumont, Texas. And by the way, for our listeners, in the spirit of full disclosure, I had to ask Lauren, where is Beaumont, Texas? Because I did not look at the map. Where is it?
So Beaumont, Texas is an hour east of Houston. It's kind of right on the Louisiana border. The Gulf Coast is right there. So it is a weird corner of the world, a very quirky corner of the world that I'm excited to tell you about.
Yeah.
New to me too. So I've been down here about 2 years. It was actually an interesting kind of COVID pandemic pivot. I was freelancing full time as a travel writer, outdoor adventure kind of influencer, media personality, working from home in Denver and just traveling full time to really show people things they didn't even know they wanted on their bucket list. I really specialize in offbeat adventures, things you had no idea you wanted to do in the world. So I've done everything kind of from horse surfing in quirky old Florida to becoming a certified Viking in Iceland. So both nationally and internationally, finding those kind of weird things that you didn't know were out there.
And you use the word quirky. That's an interesting choice of words. But then you mentioned certified Viking. How does somebody become a certified Viking?
So it's the only thing anyone ever asks about on my resume. So you're in good company.
Okay.
It was a week of intense outdoor adventure challenges. So each day was a new activity, from horse surfing, or no, not horse surfing, horse riding on their mini horses, to kind of river rafting in their very cold glacier waters. And then at the end, there was an Icelandic scavenger hunt with, I don't know if you've ever seen Icelandic, their words are about 30 syllables, and finding something in town and completing it. And you get a fun little Viking hat. So it was fun.
All right. Now, is the Viking hat like on a shelf somewhere and proudly displayed?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So, by the way, as I share with all of our guests and with my listeners, also, they know very well this about me, is I'm a very opportunistic podcaster. And so I would love to have a photo of you with the Viking hat on.
I will try to dig one up.
All right. That's cool. So it sounds like you have really, in your DNA, is just like, I've got to get out and wander and explore. Is that pretty good?
It definitely is. And I know people always try to say they want to go off the beaten path, but I really try to show people that there's more than the Denvers and the Austins and the places that are popular than you hear about. But like, to me, I really like, even with COVID and staying more nationally, I like showing the Boise's and the Clevelands and the places you wouldn't expect to be so and so cool or have all these unique outdoor opportunities. So that's really what my passion is.
Okay. Now, what is your background? I mean, I can imagine director of communications, something in journalism or communications, but where were you born and raised?
I'm from Chicago. I've kind of been making my way around the country. So born and raised in the Windy City, spent 10 years in Colorado, which you can imagine it was pretty great to have the mountain playground right there, and just got a little burnt out on Denver sort of becoming too big for its britches, sort of quickly becoming a big city, and
Right.
made my way down here. But
Oh,
career-wise, it's been all over the place. I
oh,
took a more standard job out of college in biomedical marketing and hated it and started throwing darts at the wall to see what stuck, and ended up in the travel industry doing lead gen and marketing for the very first outdoor adventure tour operator website, actually. Kind of quickly, 2 weeks into me being hired at that company, decided there was a lot of overhead in selling trips. So they became a publisher literally overnight. And I was basically told, if I want to keep my job, I can figure out how to be a managing editor, and kind of just rolled with it and was thrown into that world of content and early days of the internet, figuring out social media and how to get that to work for you. And tourism boards would come to us and be like, we want more family travelers, or we want more adventure travelers. And we would connect them with the right OG blogger and just kind of go from there. It grew into, that was really the early days of influencer marketing before that was a word, and just
okay.
kind of went with that way of the world as that company grew. They sort of pivoted again to become an agency, and I ended up freelancing full time with the same kind of clients and doing it on my own.
That's fantastic. And I love the fact that you were from the Chicago area. That's where I lived half my life before moving to Las Vegas. I had always wanted to move to Denver, so I think you've just squashed that idea. It's gotten too big for its britches. How'd you end up down in Beaumont, Texas?
It was the pandemic pivot. So I had been coming down to this corner of Texas. The Beaumont CVB, I actually met them at a different travel conference, and I was managing their content program and their social remotely. So I was coming down once a quarter to do photo shoots and stuff. And job came open, and it seemed like a good time to have health insurance and a little more of a safety net. So
Yeah,
here we are, and it's been really good. It's been fun.
that's fantastic. How long had you been in the role with the Convention and Visitors Bureau? CVB for short.
I so my 2-year anniversary in down here in total is coming up right now. So I was at the CBB about a year and a half before this new role. This new role is not just a new role, it's a completely building a communications division from scratch. So the city
Okay.
didn't have anything. So
Oh wow,
we're, yeah,
very
not a,
interesting.
yeah.
Well, what I find is really intriguing is 2 years ago, I came from Chicago to Las Vegas. You went from Denver to Beaumont, and all for opportunity, COVID, et cetera. So it's amazing the paths we take, and when opportunity presents itself, we have to be willing to kind of lean in and go for it. And as you had been spending time down in Beaumont, and well, who are the people that are going to be coming into this area, and what are they going to be doing once they get there?
So it's kind of an interesting, coming from the north, as a Yankee, they like to call me. I'm getting used to reverse high season. So it's actually like hotter than heck right now in the summers, but winter is like a fantastic time to be outside. So getting used to that is quite interesting to me. And people know this area for like the oil. It's really where oil started in Texas, but we're actually a huge birding destination. So we're on two of the migratory flyaways and literally like the very last point of the country before they head south. So any time of year you can see 250 species, and during migration that gets all the way up to 400. So they've done a lot of cool stuff kind of leaning into that ecotourism sector. They built this really cool nature boardwalk. It's actually a converted wastewater treatment plant that they've has now been named one of the best free outdoor attractions in Texas. So they're putting a lot of money into developing that. And every Saturday, there's free yoga, there's free kids crafts, just tons of free family stuff to do, free binoculars, free disc golf. There's a new nature center opening soon. We're also in this weird corner of the world where we're kind of equidistant from the beaches of the Gulf to the Big Thicket, which was the very first national reserve in the national park system. So it's kind of like a choose your own adventure. If you go to the beaches and do that stuff, there's tons of fishing. My boyfriend's like obsessed with the fishing down here. Or you go and hang out in the woods, which has the paddle trails and has tons of great camping. It has like 4 of the 5 carnivorous plant species. It's kind of a very strange biodiversity area that they call like the crossroads of America, just because there's so many ecosystems and things going on.
Okay. I'm curious, when you were at the OWA conference last week, did you get a chance to meet Ruth Hoyt?
I haven't met her.
She's a very famous birding photographer, and she's down, maybe it's farther south. I don't know how far south you could go, but she's very big in the birding, and I know there's birding ranches out there where you just hang out in the blinds and you watch birds fly by.
We do a lot of data on why people stay in our area, and people come here to bird for like 6+ days. Like, that's unheard of to me as someone who's like running around, like, okay, what's the next waterfall? Like, where do I go? Like, what's the next adventure? These people just stand in one place looking at the birds. So
Yeah. So, for what is adventure for you? I'm curious about that. Now that you are down in Beaumont 2 years, when you get off the beaten track, what is of interest to you?
So I would say I'm not nearly as active as I am down here just because Colorado, you're naturally hiking and working out without really even thinking about it, just walking around. So we really miss the mountains. We try to get back as much as possible. And any kind of weird thing I tend to gravitate towards. So I just did a drive through safari in Oklahoma. Like, we've gotten really big into road trips since the pandemic. And that's something we kind of always liked, but are definitely doing a lot more. And since Texas is so big, we're really looking for what corner of the state haven't we explored yet? Like, maps
Okay.
really, really deceiving. And then I can get to Florida in 6 hours, but like Big Bend, Texas is 12 hours away. So like there's tons of places somewhere in that region to kind of find what we find.
Okay. Now, being down in that little quirky corner of the state in by Louisiana, I'm thinking the food's got to be pretty good down there.
Oh yeah. We are big on crawfish season. It's kind of one of the main staples. You have a lot of Mardi Gras and you have a lot of crawfish.
Okay. And what are some of your favorite cuisines while you're within like the Cajun or the South? What's your favorite cuisines?
The Gulf shrimp down here is fantastic. So in all its forms of fried, boiled, gumbos, etouffees, I love all of that stuff. They're actually really famous here for something called barbecue crab, which is not actually barbecued, but deep fried blue crab. So they're
Okay.
cooked with a lot of soul and a lot of butter, as they like to say in the South. So
I
anybody,
love it.
anything bigger and more unhealthy, they'll get an after it.
Well, that kind of means if you eat it, you have got to go out and work it off. So that goes without saying. And so you have the visitors coming down, and it's the season's flipped. I mean, you've got the couple. It's like Vegas. June, the oven gets turned on. July and August, the broiler's on, and come September, it's great through May. So the folks that are coming down there, so they're going birding, they're going to the beach, they're going fishing. What are your what do you hear from them about the experience of coming down to this area of the world?
I think it's really an untapped area. It's like kind of those how rural was having a moment during COVID. It's really one of those easy day trips from Houston where it's super affordable. Like, we have tons of itineraries that are like 48 hours under $48, which you really could take advantage of the outdoors here and all the open spaces. And if you want to see people, sure. But if you want a day to just be out in nature at the beach, you could easily not see another soul and not spend a whole bunch of money. So it's really great for families. We have a lot of really, again, quirky attractions. So I like to call them swamp safaris, like the airboat kind of rides through the swamps and stuff. Gator country is one of our biggest attractions, where it's literally an alligator theme park meets rescue park. So you can feed alligators hot dogs on fishing poles. Like, it's memorable for sure.
Oh my, oh my. And what do you think are these families, the partners, kids? Are they coming down? Or is it adults? Is it folks in retirement in the RV lifestyle? How are they getting there? And what are they doing?
I think it's definitely a lot of driving from Houston, so we certainly attract kind of the birding set is a little bit older for sure, but a lot of the families, just because we do have so many affordable attractions. We used to be called the museum capital of Texas because our downtown is just very condensed, very walkable, 3 blocks of like 10 plus museums under $10 each, most free. So you could really get a lot done in a short amount of time.
Okay. Okay. Now I am curious. I just had a birthday. I'm not going to state my age. People can find out on their own. But let's just say I don't want to be working too much in the next couple of years. I love my podcasting. I could literally, if I could, I would do this for the rest of my life. Could I come down to Beaumont? Is it a great place to come and retire?
Absolutely. It is super affordable. We have a huge house. I'm not going to give numbers, but lots of land compared to Colorado. So great stuff to do. And with that reverse snowbird life, like really we have the golfing year round, we have amazing botanic gardens, bikes to rent. Like you could find plenty to do and do it very affordably.
Okay. Now, Lauren, there is that big H word. It kind of shows up in November timeframe. How's that affect you guys?
I thought you were going to say Houston. No, you mean a hurricane. Yeah, it definitely affects us. It's been interesting just getting FEMA certified and kind of learning what goes on in the crisis management. I'm not going to say it doesn't affect us because we're certainly in that cone of uncertainty area of the Gulf, but it's just something you kind of learn to live with and learn to tolerate. It's certainly rainier in the summer, but that's when people hide out in the air conditioning anyway.
There you go. Speaking of FEMA, yeah, and even your career, there's some moments in your career. I call them aha moments where like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm taking this kind of course or I'm seeing something in any of those aha moments.
Yeah, I think going through that course, I've grown up doing social media for all these travel companies and then myself, who's just so used to promoting like feel good clickbaity. Here's 10 reasons to visit blah, blah, blah. Here's 10 outdoor things to do in this place. But really, when you're dealing with an emergency situation, you are the news source. It's not about a pretty picture or a catchy headline. It's you have to be quick and you have to be accurate because you are the source of information. So really changing that mindset has been super interesting and just kind of learning everything that goes into those crisis management plans and how well attuned our area is to it, unfortunately, because I've been through it a lot. But I've been learning a lot in that area. It's been really great.
Okay. So I'm curious with the locals who are in Beaumont, and I know this from really from Chicago, is I had a lot of stuff available to me. I could go on the sailing on the lake. I played golf, played beach volleyball, probably didn't hike nearly as much as I would have liked. I would imagine the locals that you kind of get into a routine. You get up, you have your coffee, you go to work or do whatever it is you do. You come back, rinse and repeat. Are there things that the locals are continuing to learn about what it means to live in Beaumont, Texas?
Absolutely. And I think there's a level of you want to see it too. Like you want to go out and find new things to do. Like I live in Beaumont and I work downtown, but so our city is 120,000, but like there's 400,000 in Mid County, which is the Golden Triangle. It's like these three cities that make a triangle. There's just a wealth of attractions and local businesses and mom and pops that people don't even know exist because they don't venture beyond their little main residence. So yeah, I would absolutely encourage people to go to the pick your own farms and the new distillery that just opened in Terrell. And there's literally something opening every single day. There's a new jet ski company. Just there is a lot of fun things to do here. But like you absolutely nailed it on the head. When you're living there, you don't look for like tourist attractions in your own backyard.
Sure. I'm curious, as a former writer, freelance writer, and I'm a podcaster who's probably going to have to learn to do a little bit of freelance writing because I think there's has uh, organizations like yours or associations they talk about podcasting, but they really haven't thought about how do we implement something like this. If somebody were to come into say like Beaumont, Texas, and want to interview business owners about why they should be coming to Beaumont, Texas. And yeah, they visited the website and the CVB, but they still wanted to get the flavor from the businesses. What do you think those businesses would say about Beaumont to promote people like me or friends, family to come here and visit?
I say it all the time, but I think people are our biggest resource by far. And you see it so much during the hurricanes and the emergencies where anyone will check on anyone on their street, drop off an extra food item they have. But in terms of the local businesses, like they rally around these mom and pops. Like literally one of the breweries was about to have to go out of business because of COVID and stuff. And the community came together and kind of did a Kickstarter to make sure that didn't happen. And um, even I hadn't even moved here yet, and I was already running into people I knew during errands and at the grocery store, and that's kind of sums it up. Of every errand's going to take 15 minutes longer than you wanted it to because it's going to be a 20-minute conversation with everyone in town, and that's just the vibe. Everyone is very welcoming, and there's a lot of or a good amount of turnover with some of the plants and some of those kind of workers. So it's a good amount of new people, and you're always meeting new people. But it's very much like a deep seated Southern kind of we welcome everyone with open arms community. Yeah, it's very Southern. And
Okay, okay. And even the northerner like you or perhaps me.
they can't understand me half the time, but they're welcoming.
I love it. I love it. So I'm curious about, you know, perhaps we would call it a side hustle. You're a prolific blogger. And so tell us more about that.
So I had a good amount of, or have a good amount of followers on Instagram, just traveling and doing my adventures and stuff. So I try to show people different side of their favorite place, things they didn't know they wanted to do, things they didn't know existed. I would say Thailand and Turkey are two of my personal favorite countries because I kind of gravitate towards places that have that balance of city, country, mountains, and water. So I'll kind of hit all of those points. I've had some really crazy adventures like blackwater rafting in New Zealand. My last trip before the world shut down is I got to stay at the very first underwater hotel in the Great Barrier Reef. That was incredible. So, but then there's also the things like more US based that I want people to see. It's really approachable. Like some of the coolest waterfalls in the world are like hidden on an Indian reservation on the private side of the Grand Canyon. So it's
Really?
yeah, gotta apply for permits, and it's hard to get permits, but, like,
Ah, okay.
backyard.
So when you get that permit and you need somebody to carry your camera bag, you let me know because
Exactly.
I love it. I love it. It in these adventures, I mean, obviously the Viking adventure sounds phenomenal. I imagine you've already seen the Northern Lights, just given the time you've been out there.
Actually, not yet. That was supposed to be where we were gonna get married. Of course,
Ah,
too, so it is on my bucket list for sure.
okay. Yeah, I have the Northern Lights and I have a safari. I've never been on a safari. I mean, I watch these two YouTube videos channels all the time. It's like I've got to get there, but it'll come. It, thinking about your adventures aside, the with the blogging, is there an adventure that really just brings back this flood of phenomenal memories for you?
I don't know about phenomenal memories, but one of the most memorable was in Taiwan, actually. They had me hiking to a remote tribal village, which was like basically sequestered in this corner of a national park that you would never know existed. So it was quite an adventure. I would say they had us hiking in hurricane season. So it was kind of straight up a mudslide. And we stayed overnight in this remote tribal village, which was basically a lady's converted bar, and she spoke no English, and 11 cats that had all been shot. Like it was crazy. It was one of those moments of like, this tourism board is based in LA. They've probably never been to this country. They probably have no idea what they're sending me to. They just read something and thought it was cool. And that was really kind of one of my aha moments of I think I could probably be making these itineraries a little bit better than them, just knowing my audience and knowing the season and knowing that adventure doesn't necessarily mean extreme adventure.
Right.
Kind of finding that balance of, yeah, we want to show the off the beaten path stuff, but like maybe let's do the safe touristy stuff first and then kind of gradually build up.
I like that approach. I like that approach. Lauren, as you look back in your career, I mean, growing up in the Midwest, making your way west, and eventually now in again this quirky corner of the world down in Texas, is there something that you would say to your younger self about this journey you've been on?
I never thought I would be doing any of these things that I'm doing. So I guess just Go with your gut. I've had to pivot a lot in this industry and life. I know a lot of these younger generations have had a lot of changes and just what's going on in the world. So yeah, just kind of go with the flow. And if something feels right, don't be scared to make the jump. Like it's easy to get complacent. And that was really how I knew I needed to get out of Denver. It was just too safe. It was too predictable. I wanted a challenge. I wanted a change. So
Okay. I'm also curious, how did you end up at the OWAA's annual conference?
we had actually hosted a fisherman down here a couple months ago. His name is Chris Hunt. He's a great writer, and he had
Okay.
recommended to us. So he had sort of been connected to our area through one of the other members through Kay and Gulf Shores, and it all kind of came full circle. And he was like, "Y'all will get a lot out of this too." So
Oh, excellent. So I'm going to see you next year
yeah,
in Gulf Shores. Excellent.
hopefully you do a pre-trip in our area because we're not that far.
I just might. One of the problems I have is I like make my plans to get to the venue and then I don't spend any time before or after. I mean, this wagon adventure that we were on the day after, I mean, that was like the first time I actually could do something and just enjoy myself on my own time. I loved it.
You got to give yourself the time to breathe. So I guess that's another life lesson.
Yeah,
You have to relax and have fun.
I love it. And by the way, I'm going to have Morris on the podcast, so we'll hear more of his adventures. And so it sounds like you've got a lot out of the conference. Any aha moments?
I was just really excited about all the different kinds of people I met and the different opportunities that presented themselves. Like I never knew I would meet a podcaster. So
Congratulations.
one in real life.
There you go. Before we head out, any other insight to go that you would like to share with our listeners, words of wisdom, an article, a book, a quote that really kind of resonates for you that you think our listeners would get value out of?
Yes. What book did I just tell you I was reading? I can't remember what it's called. Yeah. So I'm reading an awesome book called Untamed, which is all about just basically unlearning everything you've been learning and taught that are supposed to be doing culturally as female. So kind of breaking free of those shackles and just doing what makes you happy and really not following anyone else's footsteps, but sort of making your own path and kind of breaking the norms of what we're supposed to be doing, which is really what I feel like I've done my whole career, intentionally or unintentionally. So
It sounds like it, and I am I'm envious about. I'm looking at for our listeners behind Lauren is this collage of photos, and I have no doubt these are partially her photos and partially some from Beaumont, Texas. But it's making me like I need to get off away from my desk and go travel some more. So I love that.
screensavers are both a good and bad thing. I'm like, oh, I remember that pretty place. So I haven't seen them out in a while. Yeah, get away from the beach for sure.
There you go. So Lauren, if our listeners would like to learn more about Beaumont, Texas, and about you, where are the best places for them to go?
So visit beaumonttx.com is what we are on the web. And then also all our socials are the same. Visit beaumonttx. My blog personally is thedownload.com and I'm on all the social platforms as well. So
Fantastic. We'll provide the backlinks to visit Beaumont TX and the social sites as well as yours as well. Laura, it's been a pleasure to get reacquainted with you. I think I was after trying to get out of that wagon, which was I was unsuccessful at, but I had a great time. It was great to get to know more a little bit about you and sit with you during lunch. And glad to have met you at the conference and hope to see you again.
thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Fantastic. Well, listen, stay on the line for a few minutes. We're going to do a quick close and you and I can have a final chat. Okay. Very good. All right, folks. We've just been chatting with Lauren Monitz. She's the Director of Communication for the City of Beaumont, Texas, and also the former tourism developer of the Beaumont Convention and Visitors Bureau. I had the pleasure of meeting Lauren at the Outdoor Writers Association of America's annual conference a week and a half ago up in beautiful Casper, Wyoming. We were both on a wagon excursion and I tell you, folks, back in the early 1800s, people had to have been really hardy because we were traveling on a mile, maybe 2 miles of the Oregon Trail. And I felt like I had had this an unbelievably hard massage. I was so sore the next day, but what a great experience. And what I love about conferences like this is I get to meet folks like Lauren and then continue that conversation uh, on shows like our Outdoor Adventure Series podcast and get to learn more about her, her work. And now we also know more about Beaumont, Texas. And now I'm intrigued. I've got to get down there because between hiking, biking, birding, photography, good food, always good food. I can't think of a better place. You need to check out the web and social sites that Lauren shared with us for Beaumont, Texas. Definitely go out and visit their website, visit beaumonttx.com. And we're also going to provide backlinks to their social sites. And you can also go out and visit Lauren's blog page, thedownload.com, as well as her social sites on Facebook and LinkedIn. We're going to provide that information there as well. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series. Do check us out on our website, outdooradventureseries.com. We're on Facebook and LinkedIn, our Outdoor Adventure Series pages. And we are on all of the major podcasting platforms. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there, have a phenomenal day. And we look forward to seeing you on a future episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. Take care now.